Introduction. You know something is wrong. Amelia sat in her therapist's office for the third time that month, struggling to find the words to explain why she felt like she was losing her mind. On paper, her life looked perfect. Her partner of 3 years was everything anyone could want, thoughtful, generous, always putting others first. He volunteered at the local animal shelter, remembered her mother's birthday when she forgot, and never raised his voice. Friends constantly told her how lucky she was to have found such a good man. Yet Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She found herself walking on eggshells, second-guessing every decision, and apologizing for things she couldn't even identify. When she tried to discuss her concerns with friends, they looked at her like she was ungrateful. "But he's so sweet to you," they'd say. "He brought you flowers just last week." What they didn't see were the subtle sighs when she expressed an opinion different from his, the way he'd go silent for days after she spent time with friends, or how he'd agree to her suggestions with a martyred tone that made her feel selfish for even asking. The breaking point came when Amelia realized she had stopped recognizing herself. The confident, decisive woman she once was had been replaced by someone who constantly sought permission, questioned her own memories, and felt guilty for having needs. She was drowning in a relationship that looked like a fairy tale from the outside, but felt like psychological quicksand from within. What Amelia didn't know was that she was experiencing one of the most insidious forms of emotional abuse: covert narcissistic manipulation disguised as kindness. Her partner wasn't the selfless saint he appeared to be. He was a master manipulator who had weaponized empathy, generosity, and victimhood to maintain complete control over her reality. The Hidden Epidemic. This book exists to shine a light into the shadows where the most dangerous emotional predators hide, those who have perfected the art of manipulation through apparent selflessness. While most people can spot an overtly aggressive narcissist from a mile away, covert passive-aggressive narcissists operate like emotional chameleons, camouflaging their toxic behavior behind a facade of kindness, empathy, and moral superiority. These individuals don't scream or throw tantrums. Instead, they sigh heavily when you make plans without them. They don't openly criticize. They offer helpful suggestions that systematically erode your confidence. They don't demand control. They position themselves as perpetual victims whose needs must always come first. They don't isolate you through force. They make you feel guilty for wanting independence. The result is a form of psychological warfare that leaves victims questioning their own sanity, while everyone around them praises their abuser's character. This book will decode their tactics, expose their strategies, and provide you with the tools to recognize, understand, and ultimately free yourself from their influence. Our mission is clear: to give you back your reality, validate your experiences, and arm you with the knowledge needed to protect your mental health from those who would exploit your compassion and empathy for their own gain. WHO This book is for. This book is written for the walking wounded, those who carry invisible scars from relationships that look healthy on the surface but feel toxic underneath. You might be the person who questions your own reality. You find yourself constantly second-guessing your perceptions, memories, and feelings. You know something feels wrong, but you can't put your finger on what it is, and everyone else seems to think your relationship is wonderful. Feels trapped by someone's goodness. You're involved with someone who appears selfless, kind, and caring to the outside world, yet you feel emotionally drained, controlled, and diminished in their presence. You feel guilty for having negative feelings about such a good person. Struggles with invisible chains. You feel controlled, but can't identify specific controlling behaviors. Your freedom has been eroded gradually through guilt, obligation, and emotional manipulation, rather than obvious demands or threats. Experiences chronic confusion. You frequently feel confused about your own needs, wants, and boundaries. What used to feel natural and instinctive now feels foreign and selfish. Feels emotionally exhausted. Despite being in a relationship with someone who claims to care deeply about you, you feel consistently drained, anxious, and depleted rather than supported and energized. Can't explain the problem. When you try to describe what's wrong to friends, family, or even therapists, you struggle to articulate the issue because there's no obvious abuse, just a persistent feeling that something is very wrong. You deserve freedom from emotional manipulation and the ability to recognize these hidden abuse patterns. You have the right to clear strategies that will protect your mental health while dealing with toxic relationships. Most importantly, you deserve permission to leave without guilt and the confidence to trust your own reality again. Whether you're currently trapped in such a relationship, recently escaped from one, or trying to help someone you care about, this book will provide the clarity and tools you've been searching for. Why this book is different. This is the first book specifically dedicated to exposing and dismantling the tactics of covert passive-aggressive narcissists who hide behind a mask of kindness. While countless resources exist for dealing with obvious narcissistic abuse, virtually nothing addresses this more subtle but equally devastating form of manipulation. Research-based foundation. Our approach combines cutting-edge psychological research with real survivor experiences, creating a comprehensive understanding of how these manipulators operate. We don't just tell you what they do. We explain the psychological mechanisms behind their behavior and why their tactics are so effective. Focus on the invisible. Most abuse resources focus on obvious red flags: yelling, controlling behavior, isolation tactics. This book illuminates the invisible red flags: the strategic size, the guilt-inducing generosity, the weaponized empathy, and the martyrdom that keeps you trapped. Survivor-centered perspective. Every strategy and insight in this book has been tested by real survivors who have successfully identified, understood, and escaped from covert narcissistic abuse. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're battle-tested tools that work in the real world. Beyond recognition to liberation. While other resources stop at helping you recognize abuse, this book takes you all the way to freedom. We provide specific, actionable strategies for protecting yourself, maintaining your sanity, and ultimately breaking free from their control. The psychology behind the mask. We don't just describe behaviors. We decode the psychological warfare involved. Understanding why these tactics work is crucial to developing immunity against them. Validation and permission. Perhaps most importantly, this book gives you something that may have been missing from your life for far too long: validation of your experiences and permission to trust your own reality, even when everyone else is fooled by the mask. What to expect: your journey from confusion to clarity. This book will take you on a transformative journey from the fog of confusion to the clear light of understanding and empowerment. Think of it as a roadmap out of the psychological maze where you've been trapped. Phase 1: Recognition. We begin by helping you identify the familiar patterns that have been haunting your relationship. You'll learn to spot the subtle signs that distinguish genuine kindness from manipulative kindness, and you'll discover why your instincts have been screaming that something is wrong even when you can't articulate what it is. Chapter 1: The Angel Who Steals Your Soul reveals how covert narcissists present themselves as perfect partners while systematically undermining your sense of self. Chapter 2: The Archaeology of Your Own Mind helps you excavate your buried instincts and rediscover your authentic voice. Phase 2: Understanding the Tactics. Next, we'll pull back the curtain to reveal the hidden manipulation tactics that have been used against you. You'll understand the psychology behind guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail disguised as concern, and how your natural empathy has been weaponized against you. Chapter 3: The Victim's Crown exposes how they maintain power by positioning themselves as the perpetual victim. Chapter 4: The Silent Treatment Symphony decodes their use of strategic withdrawal and emotional withholding. Chapter 5: The Empathy Vampire's feeding schedule shows how they drain your emotional energy while presenting themselves as givers. Phase 3: Psychological Warfare. We'll explore the sophisticated psychological warfare that covert narcissists employ, including how they create trauma bonds, manufacture dependency, and systematically erode your sense of self while maintaining their image as the perfect partner. Chapter 6: the gaslighting laboratory reveals their reality distortion techniques. Chapter 7, The Invisible Leash exposes how they create financial and practical dependencies that keep you trapped. Phase 4, Building Defenses. Armed with understanding, you'll learn bulletproof strategies for protecting your mental health and maintaining your sanity while dealing with these toxic individuals. These tools work whether you're planning to leave or forced to maintain contact. Chapter 8. The mind's immune system provides psychological defense mechanisms that neutralize their manipulation attempts. Phase 5. Liberation and Recovery. Finally, we'll guide you through the process of reclaiming your reality, rebuilding your confidence, and either escaping the relationship safely or neutralizing their power over you if you must remain in contact. Chapter 9, The Great Escape, offers strategies for different scenarios and relationship types. Chapter 10, The Phoenix Protocol, guides your recovery and rebuilding process. Throughout this journey, you'll discover that you're not alone, you're not crazy, and you're not imagining things. Most importantly, you'll learn that you have more power than you realize to protect yourself and create the healthy, authentic life you deserve. Trust your inner voice. As you read this book, pay attention to that voice inside you, the one that's been trying to tell you something is wrong, even when everyone else insists everything is fine. That voice isn't your enemy. It's your greatest ally and your most reliable guide to the truth. If something in these pages resonates with you, don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it away or make excuses for the person who's been causing you pain. Your instincts have brought you this far. Trust them to guide you the rest of the way. You didn't pick up this book by accident. Something inside you knows you need these tools, this validation, this permission to see clearly what's been hidden in plain sight. That same inner wisdom will help you apply what you learn and take the steps necessary to protect yourself. Remember this: you are not responsible for fixing someone else's psychological issues, and you are not obligated to sacrifice your mental health on the altar of someone else's needs, no matter how convincingly they present themselves as the victim. You deserve relationships that energize rather than drain you, partners who celebrate your independence rather than punish it, and love that builds you up rather than tears you down from the inside. Your journey to freedom starts now. Trust yourself. You deserve better, and with the tools in this book you can create the life you truly want, one built on truth, authenticity, and genuine care rather than manipulation disguised as love. Turn the page when you're ready to begin reclaiming your reality. 1. The angel WHO steals your soul. When flawless feels hollow. Brooklyn stared at the beautiful bouquet of roses on her kitchen counter, feeling nothing but dread. To anyone else, her boyfriend looked like a dream, thoughtful, generous, always doing sweet things. Yet she felt more alone than ever, like she was slowly disappearing. The most dangerous emotional manipulators don't come wearing obvious red flags. They arrive as your savior, your perfect match, the answer to your prayers. They shower you with attention, gifts, and seemingly selfless acts that make everyone around you envious. But beneath this angelic facade lies a calculated system designed to make you completely dependent on their validation, while systematically eroding your sense of self. This phenomenon creates what we call hollow perfection, a relationship that looks flawless from the outside but feels empty and suffocating from within. The covert passive-aggressive narcissist has mastered the art of appearing wonderful while slowly poisoning your emotional well-being through subtle manipulation tactics that are nearly impossible to identify until you're already trapped. The perfection paradox. When someone seems too good to be true, they often are. The covert narcissist understands that most people have been burned by obvious manipulators in the past, so they take the opposite approach. They become everything you've ever wanted in a partner or family member. They listen intently to your stories, remember your favorite things, and anticipate your needs with almost supernatural accuracy. This behavior serves multiple purposes. Data collection. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to gather information about your vulnerabilities, dreams, and fears. Dependency creation. By being your perfect person, they make themselves irreplaceable in your life. Social protection. Their flawless public image makes it nearly impossible for others to believe you if you try to explain your concerns. The invisible prison bars. The most insidious aspect of hollow perfection is how it creates invisible boundaries around your life. While traditional abusers use obvious control tactics, the covert narcissist builds walls you can't even see. They don't forbid you from seeing friends. Instead, they schedule romantic surprises during every social event you want to attend. They don't criticize your hobbies directly. They just happen to have emergencies whenever you try to pursue them. Finn discovered this pattern in his relationship with his seemingly supportive partner. She never told him he couldn't play guitar with his band, but somehow she always had panic attacks or family crises on practice nights. When he tried to discuss it, she would cry and apologize, saying she didn't want to be a burden. The guilt was overwhelming. He felt selfish for even thinking about his music when she needed him so desperately. The validation addiction cycle. Hollow perfection works by creating an addiction to the narcissist's approval through a carefully orchestrated cycle of reinforcement. They shower you with praise and attention during the love bombing phase, creating an emotional high that becomes your new normal. Then they gradually introduce subtle withdrawals of affection, not enough to trigger obvious alarm bells, but sufficient to create anxiety and desperation. This cycle follows a predictable pattern. Phase 1: Overwhelming love. Constant attention and affection. Excessive compliments and praise. Grand romantic gestures. Complete focus on your happiness. Phase 2: Subtle withdrawal. Slight decrease in enthusiasm. Delayed responses to messages. Minor criticisms disguised as concern. Emotional distance during conversations. Phase 3: Reconciliation. Return to loving behavior. Explanations for their distance. Renewed promises and gestures. Increased intensity to make up for withdrawal. Phase 4: Escalated dependency. Your relief creates stronger attachment. Increased fear of losing them. Greater willingness to compromise yourself. Deeper isolation from other support systems. The mirror effect. One of the most disturbing aspects of hollow perfection is how it reflects back a distorted version of yourself. The covert narcissist becomes an expert at mirroring your values, interests, and dreams while slowly replacing them with their own agenda. They don't steal your identity outright. Instead, they gradually reshape it until you no longer recognize yourself. Brooklyn realized this had happened when she looked at her apartment and couldn't find a single item that represented her authentic preferences. Everything had been lovingly replaced with things her partner had chosen for her own good, or because, wouldn't this look so much better? She had agreed to each change individually, but collectively they had erased her personal identity from her own living space. The social validation trap. Hollow perfection becomes even more powerful when others reinforce it. Friends and family members constantly praise your wonderful partner, making you question your own perceptions when something feels wrong. This external validation creates additional pressure to maintain the relationship and makes you feel guilty for experiencing any negative emotions about someone who treats you so well. The covert narcissist actively cultivates this social support by being charming and helpful to your friends and family, sharing carefully selected stories that paint them as devoted and caring, creating situations where others witness their selfless acts, positioning themselves as the victim when you express any concerns. The emotional quicksand. As hollow perfection continues, you find yourself sinking deeper into emotional quicksand. The more you struggle to understand why you feel unhappy, despite having everything you thought you wanted, the more trapped you become. Your partner's perfect behavior makes your dissatisfaction seem unreasonable, creating shame that drives you further into isolation. This emotional quicksand has several components. Confusion. Your logical mind says everything is wonderful while your emotions scream something is wrong. Guilt. You feel ungrateful for questioning someone who does so much for you. Isolation. You can't discuss your concerns without seeming unreasonable. Self-doubt. You begin questioning your own perceptions and emotional responses. The foundation we're building here will become crucial as we move forward to examine how these manipulators have already begun reshaping your internal landscape. In our next chapter, we'll explore the archaeological work needed to uncover who you were before this hollow perfection began burying your authentic self under layers of manufactured dependency. Understanding hollow perfection is the first step toward recognizing that your instincts haven't been wrong. They've been systematically suppressed by someone who needed you to doubt yourself to maintain control. When helping hands turned to fists. Every time Elliot tried to express frustration with his partner's controlling behavior, she would remind him of all the sacrifices she'd made for him. "After everything I've done for you," became her favorite phrase, turning every act of apparent love into ammunition against his autonomy. Covert manipulators weaponize kindness, transforming genuine-seeming acts of service into invisible chains that bind you to them. Their selfless behavior creates an unpayable debt that they cash in whenever you attempt to assert boundaries, express dissatisfaction, or reclaim your independence. This leaves you feeling guilty for being ungrateful, while simultaneously feeling trapped and controlled. The transformation from helping hands to controlling fists happens so gradually that you don't notice until you're already completely entangled. What began as thoughtful gestures evolve into a sophisticated system of emotional manipulation, where every act of apparent kindness serves as both a gift and a weapon. The debt collection system. Unlike healthy relationships where kindness flows freely without expectation of repayment, the covert narcissist operates an invisible emotional bank where every favor, gift, or act of service accrues interest. They maintain a detailed mental ledger of their investments in you, ready to present the bill whenever you step out of line. This debt collection system works through several key mechanisms. The generosity trap. Overwhelming you with unsolicited help and gifts. Creating situations where you need their assistance. Positioning themselves as your primary caretaker. Making you feel obligated to accept their offerings. The gratitude demand. Expecting constant appreciation for their efforts. Making you feel guilty for not showing enough enthusiasm. Interpreting any criticism as ingratitude. Using your lack of appreciation to justify their behavior. The leverage bank. Storing up every act of kindness for future manipulation. Presenting their sacrifices as evidence of your selfishness. Making withdrawal impossible without appearing ungrateful. Compounding interest through emotional guilt. The service to control pipeline. The most insidious aspect of weaponized kindness is how it creates dependency while appearing to be selfless love. The covert narcissist doesn't just help you, they systematically replace your capabilities with their own, ensuring you become reliant on their continued generosity. Elizabeth experienced this firsthand when her mother began helping with her finances after a minor budgeting mistake. What started as temporary assistance gradually expanded until her mother controlled every aspect of her financial life. When Elizabeth tried to regain independence, her mother would list all the times she had saved her from financial disaster, making Elizabeth feel incompetent and ungrateful for wanting autonomy. The pipeline follows a predictable progression. Phase 1. Identification of needs. Observing areas where you might struggle. Creating crises that require their intervention. Positioning themselves as uniquely qualified to help. Making their assistance seem essential. Phase 2. Gradual takeover. Slowly expanding their involvement in your affairs. Making themselves indispensable to your daily functioning. Discouraging your efforts to maintain independence. Creating systems that only they understand. Phase 3. Dependency establishment. Ensuring you cannot function without their continued help. making the cost of learning to do things yourself seem prohibitive. Creating anxiety about your ability to handle responsibilities alone. Positioning their control as protection. Phase 4. Leverage activation. Using your dependency to control your behavior. Threatening withdrawal of support when you resist their demands. Making every disagreement about their sacrifices. Ensuring escape seems impossible without losing everything. The martyrdom performance. When helping hands fully transform into fists, the covert narcissist often adopts a martyrdom persona that makes their control even more difficult to challenge. They present themselves as selflessly sacrificing their own needs and happiness for your benefit, making any resistance on your part seem cruel and heartless. This martyrdom performance includes several key elements. The suffering narrative, constantly referencing how much they've given up for you. The comparison game, highlighting how much better they treat you than others would. The guilt amplification, making your ingratitude seem like a character flaw. The future threat, implying that without their help you would fail completely. The kindness withdrawal threat. Perhaps the most controlling aspect of weaponized kindness is the constant underlying threat that it could be withdrawn at any moment. This creates a state of perpetual anxiety where you feel compelled to maintain their approval to keep their generous support flowing. The fear of losing their help becomes more powerful than chains because you've been conditioned to believe you cannot survive without it. Elliot lived in constant fear that his partner would stop managing their household if he complained about her controlling behavior. She had systematically taken over every domestic responsibility, while making it clear that she was doing him an enormous favor. The threat of having to handle these tasks himself, which he had managed perfectly well before meeting her, now seemed overwhelming and impossible. The gratitude prison. The ultimate goal of weaponized kindness is to create what we call a gratitude prison, a psychological state where you feel permanently indebted to your manipulator and believe that expressing any dissatisfaction or desire for independence makes you fundamentally ungrateful and selfish. Inside this prison, every boundary you try to set becomes evidence of your ingratitude. Your natural desire for autonomy is reframed as rejection of their love. Questioning their methods means questioning their sacrifices. Independence is presented as abandonment and betrayal. The recognition solution. Breaking free from weaponized kindness begins with recognizing that genuine care doesn't create debt, demand constant gratitude, or threaten withdrawal when you assert your needs. Healthy helping hands support your growth and independence, rather than creating dependency and control. As we move forward into examining the archaeology of your own mind in the next chapter, we'll explore how these patterns of weaponized kindness have potentially reshaped your internal landscape. Understanding how their generous control has affected your self-perception becomes crucial for rebuilding your authentic sense of capability and worth. The helping hands that have turned to fists didn't just control your external circumstances, they've likely convinced you that you're incapable of helping yourself. When nobody gets your struggles. When Harper tried to explain to her best friend why she was unhappy in her relationship, she watched her friend's face change from concern to confusion. "But he's so good to you," her friend said. "He brings you flowers every week and always puts you first. I wish my boyfriend was half as thoughtful." Harper felt crazy and alone, unable to articulate the suffocating control hidden behind those flowers. The most insidious aspect of covert manipulation is how it operates below the radar of outside observers. To everyone else, your partner appears to be a saint, generous, devoted, and seemingly selfless. This creates a devastating isolation where your reality is constantly invalidated by well-meaning friends and family who only see the carefully crafted public persona, leaving you questioning your own sanity and judgment. This invisible struggle creates what psychologists call social invalidation, a phenomenon where your lived experience is consistently dismissed or minimized by people who care about you but cannot see the truth behind the facade. The result is a unique form of torture where you suffer in silence, surrounded by people who think you're living a dream. The performance artist's master